The following presentation in this video are personal viewpoints of the speaker and do not reflect official policy or views of the Department of Defense or any of the U.S. military services. Welcome to Shoot, Move, Communicate, where we provide video content for military members to be educated on how to be fit for the fight in life. In other words, we provide content for service members on how to be physically, mentally, and spiritually ready for the violence of combat and for tackling the obstacles of life. Our video content is designed to be used ideally in small unit discussion in conjunction with physical fitness and tactical training for maximum effectiveness. I'm Chris Reardon, an active duty U.S. Marine, and today we're continuing with part 4 of our series regarding ethical and moral principles related to the employment of deadly force. Our next video, part 4, will include special bonus material based out of Lieutenant Colonel Grossman's book on combat. We will be providing commentary from one of the last chapters in Grossman's book titled Thou Shalt Not Kill, the Judeo Christian View of Killing. As a disclaimer, this material does make references to the religious text of the Bible and should be viewed on the basis of individual viewing content or if used in a professional group setting as part of an official command religious program through approval by the unit chaplain with voluntary participation disclaimers given. We hope you'll be able to join us for this last session regarding our series on the employment of deadly force. To start this bonus section off, I would like to read off a quote from On Combat taken from Rod Dreher's Ministers of War book that really frames the discussion quite well. Courage is really fear that said its prayers, says Father Vincent J. Inglaterra, a top Army colonel and Catholic priest who has been a military chaplain for 34 years. Talking to these chaplains, one is struck by their moral realism and how starkly it contrasts with the sentimentality you find among so many clergymen today. Theirs is a sterner faith, a more manlier piety that mainstream America is accustomed to. Clerical pacifism leaves many soldiers angry, confused, betrayed, and even spiteful toward faith. These pronouncements tend to reinforce the notion that religion is for wimps, for prissy pants, for freely suited morons, and those are among the gentler statements I hear, says Chaplain Eric Verhulst. It frustrates me because I know that notion is false, but all I can do is provide a counterexample. Killing in war takes a huge psychological, moral, and spiritual cost to the human who does so and witnesses it. To avoid moral injury and come back whole, warriors must come to grips with what they are doing is justified legally, ethically, and morally so that they can return home with peace about it. When considering this, a major moral framework for this discussion among Western countries comes from the Judeo-Christian religious worldview. In particular, this worldview has been codified in philosophical terms under the name of just war doctrine, or jus in bello and jus post bellum. It is considered to be started by theologians Augustine of Hippo and Thomas Aquinas. For Americans in particular, where the greatest majority of religious faith is that of the Judeo-Christian faith tradition, it is imperative then to understand the basics of this worldview in terms of warfighting and the appropriate bounds of killing another human being. Many people, when thinking about the morality of killing from a Judeo-Christian worldview, typically go to the civil law that was first established national leader of the Jewish nation, a man by the name of Moses, presented to his people as written in what is today known as the Old Testament of the Bible. In particular, he laid out a foundational moral code with what has been commonly known as the Ten Commandments. The sixth one has been espoused in the English language often as thou shalt not kill. A closer look at the language, though, which was originally Hebrew, provides a different word than just killing in general, but provides the connotation of unlawful killing or premeditated murder. Now, when looking at the context of the entire Mosaic Law, killing was sanctioned and even obligatory based on justice needing to be meted out for civil crimes or in the context of the national defense of the Jewish people against foreign enemies. Now, manslaughter is also listed as well, with certain prescriptions for how to provide mercy to an individual who committed manslaughter versus somebody who just took life in cold blood and in an unsanctioned manner. Further analysis of the Old Testament continues to show sanctioned killing for the purposes of justice by civil leaders and warriors to include the punishment of murder. Thus, the sixth commandment really should be read, "Thou shalt not murder." In the New Testament, one of the most poignant examples that validates the warrior profession is found from the writings of Luke, a doctor who transcribed many action scenes from the life of Jesus of Nazareth, as well as one of the early founders of the Christian religion, Paul, whom was formerly known as Saul of Tarsus. Now, during a moving scene found in the 7th chapter of the ancient manuscript of Luke, a Roman centurion sends a message to Jesus asking for the divine favor and healing of one of his sick servants. The centurion goes on to say that he, like Jesus, is a man under authority, and he gives commands that are expected to be obeyed to his servants. As such, he trusts that Jesus can just say a word without even physically meeting his servant, based on the centurion's faith that Jesus is under the divine authority of God to heal. And not only that, he's not only divine authority to heal, but he's under divine authority to heal humans in a miraculous manner. Now, Jesus marvels at this comment and says explicitly he has not seen such faith in all of Israel. Now, Jesus never tells the centurion to leave his life as a soldier, which he most likely would have if Jesus felt this was a sinful occupation. Jesus, in fact, tells a woman caught in adultery to leave her life of sin and even requests a rich young ruler to sell what he has and give to the poor and then come follow Jesus. However, no such requirement is stated of this centurion. Later, Luke describes in the book of Acts multiple accounts of Roman soldiers and civil peace officers, such as a jailer, who protect Paul, with many being accepted by God through faith without being asked to change their professions. Paul himself writes in the 13th chapter of a letter to Christians living in Rome that followers of Jesus of Nazareth should be submissive to government authorities who do not bear the sword without reason, and whom are avengers of God to punish evil doing. In other words, government authorities are given a specific responsibility and subsequent authority to use force up to and including lethal force to keep in check crime, rebellion, and lethal threats to populaces under the care of rulers and magistrates here on earth. Various sects of the Judeo-Christian worldview feel that killing is never sanctioned, but the majority of those subscribing to this worldview find that the profession of arms is in keeping with their faith. If the majority view is taken, then this would relieve the warrior's soul of guilt for wrongdoing when they're in fact lawfully under legitimate government authority, when they took life when necessary to protect others from criminals or actors who pose a threat to the well-being of other local, national, and international communities. For those wishing to get a more in-depth perspective on this issue, especially from a Christian standpoint, an excellent video session titled Bearing the Sword from the After God's Own Heart video series is a must-watch. A link to this particular video session will be listed below in the links notes section of this YouTube video. With that, I want to thank you for watching this important discussion on key legal and moral viewpoints surrounding the use of deadly force in particular. We hope that this knowledge becomes part of the ethical flagfest and Kevlar needed to withstand the intense psychological and spiritual tensions related to taking the life of another human being, even when done lawfully. We hope to see you on future Shoot, Move, Communicate video sessions, where we will continue to train operators to be fit for the fight and for life, namely to be physically, mentally, and spiritually prepared for the violence of combat. Until then, remember, land of the free because of the brave.